Yes.
The second subject I wanted to talk about, are you familiar with a book in our collective consciousness called Reality Transurfing?
Define.
It's a book written by a quantum physicist named Vadim Zeland. It has to do with understanding how to shift through parallel realities, knowing that the parallel reality we want to shift to already exists.
Yes. Because you're doing it anyway.
Yes.
That's how you create the side effect called time.
Yes. And in the book, there is this concept of what are called pendulums. Now,
Yes.
a pendulum is a thought structure or an idea that many people within a collective conditioning may be thinking of. So, for example, if you're a Republican or you're Democrat, these would both represent pendulums because whether you agree with them or disagree with them,
Yes.
you're becoming part of a thought structure that has a
Yes.
gravitational pull on you.
Yes.
So-
Because you allow it to do so.
Yes, so my question is these pendulums, I guess I would like a little bit more clarification as to these pendulums, how they would have, do thoughts actually have form?
In a sense, they do have momentum.
Okay.
And therefore, when you allow yourself to repeat, if you will, over and over and over again, a particular path, a particular thought form, a particular structure, it does build up in physical reality the concept of a momentum. For example, in our society, at this point in our evolution, we are so oriented to the concept of understanding the structure of existence and experiencing synchronicity in every single thing we do, that it is now actually a challenge. It would be an effort to overcome the inertia of that direction in order to actually have a negative experience.
Wow.
So yes, it does build up because that's one of the definitions of physical reality, is that there is mass and energy. And therefore it has momentum. It has inertia.
Okay, so
That's what the pendulum is about. Building up a sense of inertia or mass that then may seem to make things difficult to swing in a different direction, because that's one of the definitions you have bought into of physical reality. You have called it the idea of laws of motion.
there's when I was reading about this idea in the book, something kind of came to me because sometimes when I'm listening to certain songs via music,
Yes.
if I'm listening to a certain song that I feel like in the collective consciousness, millions of other people have listened to that same song and maybe
Yes.
generated a certain emotion,
Yes.
I feel like I can almost pick up on the thoughts of those people.
Yes, of course you can, but it's not that you're picking up on their thoughts. It's that you're in the same frequency and having the same thoughts at the same time because of the thoughts that go with that frequency. Because you're putting yourself in a certain state. That's why we say telepathy is not reading someone else's mind.
Right.
It's being on the same wavelength and having the same thoughts at the same time synchronistically.
I see.
That's how that works.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does that answer your question?
It does. One other thing I wanted to touch on with the pendulum idea is
Yes.
understanding, you touched on it earlier with archetypes.
Yes.
The archetypes within our collective consciousness,
Yes.
if we are unaware of the archetypes, do the archetypes still have power, not over us, but do they still influence us? Because we've
They
incarnated.
can, depending upon the level of unawareness that you have agreed to abide by. So in other words, if you're simply saying it's okay for them to have that influence because I don't really need to know about it, I'm running on automatic because I need to pay attention to other things, then yes, the so-called influence can be built into the structure. But there can be levels where you simply realize that there is no influence at all, whether you're aware or unaware of it, because that's what you've chosen as a theme.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily relevant for influence from that particular archetype, at least not in any major way that would be discernible in your life.
I see.
But generally, you have agreed to play by the overall rules of the game. We often use chess as an analogy for your people because it's a game you're familiar with. You may say, well, I'm going to play chess, therefore I have to abide by the rules of chess, otherwise I'm not playing that game. But you don't necessarily have to pay attention. Once you understand the rules, you can focus on other things. You can focus on what kind of pieces you're using, what they're made of, what your strategy is, so on and so forth, without necessarily having to pay attention to the rules anymore because they're so ingrained that it's automatic. It's sort of like that.
I see. Thank
Yes.
you. And then